المرسلين على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Respectful honorable friends, continuing from yesterday's program, wherein we were mentioning how the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala acquired the position of radiallahu anhu wa radu anhu, and for them to reach that position, it was due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being completely pleased with them, and they acquired or attained the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of the perfection of the deeds and the ibadat. And this perfection in the deeds came about, as I mentioned to you, because the external and the internal both were according to how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala desired or wanted it to be. With regards to external, they had the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from whom they directly learned and saw how he carried out his ibadat, and they carried out their ibadat exactly the same. As we find the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, they just, all the ibadat, they carried it out exactly how they saw Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam doing it. So externally, it conformed with the Sharia, it conformed with the Sunnah. And then internally, whatever internal condition they needed to have for that ibadah to be accepted, we find they had that in them. And it was because of this, each deed of theirs acquired that caliber, attained that caliber, which was then accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on that you find that they acquired the pleasure of Allah, wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them the title of radiyallahu anhu wa radu an. And this, dear friends, this title is a very noble title. And remember, these are the same people who, prior to Islam, as I mentioned to you, they were involved in all sorts of evil and vice. And there were those people who, when it came to, with regards their hearts and the internal self, these are those people who were involved in kufr and shirk. And how from kufr and shirk, their lives totally, their hearts totally changed. Changed to such a degree that now whatever they did it solely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where the example I've given you of Sayyidina Hafizahullah, there's a slight change in his ruhani kayfiyya condition made him assume that he had reached, that he had become a munafiq. That's how pure their hearts had become, whereas these were the same hearts that believed in shirk, had shirk in the heart, had kufr in the heart. And now you find that they are solely, in their hearts they only have the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala on an occasion, it so happened that while in the midst of battle, he overpowered one of his opponents, and then it so happened that the opponent had then hit him, and Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala got angry, and then he overpowered his opponent. And when he overpowered his opponent, he was about to finish him off, wherein he stopped for a moment. He stopped, and when he stopped, then he drew back and told his opponent to come towards him again. Now this opponent was taken aback himself, that he had the opportunity to finish me off, and we're in the midst of battle. Why this change? Why did he hesitate therefore? And why does he move away from me and tells me again to come and challenge him? See, Ali radiallahu ta'ala mentioned, look, at that time, when I was fighting with you, my intention was solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when it was a case wherein you had overturned me, then it became personal. I felt that, and then it became personal. And at that moment it was my personal desire to finish you off. And I feel if I did so, then it wouldn't have sincerity in it. It wouldn't be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now I've checked my intention. Now you come again to me. This time it will be solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just see, we're talking about those people, those companions who prior to all this, prior to وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, they had what lurked in the heart was shirk. But whatever they did it for the sake of so many idols that they had. Whatever they did it for the, whatever they did it for the sake of people, for show. This is how they were. But now you find when the heart changes, and this transformation in the heart came about through وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam making that tazkiyah. And when that was the case, then each deed of theirs was accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas you and I, we do deeds. We do a lot of deeds as well. But because of the inner condition of our hearts, it is questionable whether those deeds are even accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not. And when they are not accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we cannot acquire the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, they acquired the pleasure of Allah because the external and the internal conform to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the ibadat was presented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala how He wanted it. And this transformation in them came about due to this tazkiyah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَإِذْتُ لِيُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ Nabi Kareem mentioned that he was sent for that sake, so that whatever flaws they had in their hearts, that he should transform that and change that. So this came about through tazkiyah. As I mentioned to you, when it comes to tazkiyah, it wasn't something that was different, it wasn't something that was separate from the lives of the Sahaba, but it was part and parcel of their lives. So it isn't a new concept. And nobody can claim that Tasawwuf was something that came about in later years and was not rife or was not practiced during the time of Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala. We find what is Tasawwuf. The I.T.A, the beginning of Tasawwuf is from one of the first hadiths that you find in majority of the books of hadith is what? إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. And this is what Tasawwuf is. The I.T.A, the beginning of Tasawwuf is إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. And the goal of Tasawwuf is ihsan, that an ta'budu Allah ka'annaka tarahu, that you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what Tasawwuf is. That a person reaches such a position that he has in him innamal a'malu binniyat. And we all know, without ikhlas, none of our deeds are accepted. And ikhlas is a fundamental thing in everything that we do, whether it is small or big. Whatever ibadat we do, whether it is a sunnah or whether it is a farz deed, if the intention is incorrect, the deed itself is not accepted. And this correction of the intention has to do with the spiritual self, the internal self. It is in the heart. Intention is in the heart. Intention is not something that we can change physically. Look, let me physically make a good intention. We can't. Intention is that which is in the heart. If the heart is pure, our intentions will be pure. If our hearts are impure, our intentions will be impure as well. So Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, that each deed is based, and the foundation and the basis of acceptance of each deed is on the intention of the person. And acquiring this ikhlas, which is imperative for every single deed that we do. This is to do with tazkiyah, where the heart is purified. So wherever there is ghairullah means where we want to do something, but it isn't for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is to show somebody else, show our fellow colleagues, our fellow mates, our friends, our parents, anybody else. There you find, there isn't any ikhlas. There is no and if there is no ikhlas, then that deed is not accepted. And this is the first step of tasawwuf, of tazkiyah, of the rectification of the intention. And when this is achieved, then you find whatever deed you do, every action you do, in it will be ikhlas. And at that time wherein there is a change in the intention, immediately the heart will be alerted to this. And this comes about through tazkiyah. I said Ali radiallahu ta'ala in the Sahaba, where as mentioned to you, Sayyidina Hafiza, where just because the slight change in his feelings, in his spiritual feelings of when he is in the company of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then when he goes home, this slight change up and down that came about in his condition, it immediately set alarm bells in him. It alerted him and he started saying, Nafaka Hanzala. And this is what happens when the heart now becomes purified. Then as soon as there is any germs or any ills that comes into the heart is immediately alerted to it. It's not a case that the heart becomes pure, totally pure, and it remains pure all the time. This is impossible. This isn't going to happen. But the heart now becomes clean. And when the heart becomes clean and cleansed, now he can perceive the germs that comes in. If it's infested with germs, then a new germ comes in, another germ comes in, you're not going to be able to notice it. And this was the case of the Sahaba. Prior to where there was kufr and shirk, every evil was evil, it made no difference to them. And it is for that reason when Nabi Karim says mentioned that when a person disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a black dot comes onto the heart. He repents, it is removed. Sins again, another black dot. Sins again, another black dot. Until the entire heart is covered and it becomes darkened. And when it becomes darkened, there is nothing but darkness in the heart. And that heart which becomes darkened in such a way is void of any form of ruhaniya, is void of any form of spirituality. And when Nabi Karim mentioned this shows that that is when that heart is a pure heart. Otherwise, our heart is darkened anyway. So we do not perceive those black dots. When here Nabi Karim mentioned a black dot comes onto that heart, so that heart needs to be clean and pure. And when it's clean and pure, when that black dot comes onto it, the heart will perceive it, it will be alerted that something wrong has happened, the condition of the heart has changed. And when that is the case, then immediately a person knows that look, at this moment my intention is wrong, I need to change the intention. And as soon as he changes his intention, again he's purified his heart. So the first step of Tasawwuf and Suluk is إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. And then a person continues through this until then he reaches the stage of ihsan. And what is the condition of ihsan, which Nabi Karim mentions? That أَن تَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ, that you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like you are seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the highest position. And again, this has to do with the spiritual self. Otherwise, as I mentioned to you, a person can be standing in front of the Kaaba, the Baytullah, and he has great devotion and he's standing there. And he's performing salah according to the sunnah manner as well. But his heart is disattached. He's facing the Baytullah, but his heart is not attached to the Baytullah. His heart is not attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then no matter how good he is performing his salah will be accepted by Allah. It is done, his discharge, his duty. But the condition that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants of the salah is not there. And as all sitting here, we all know what our condition is and what is the condition of our salah. Do we have ihsan in our salah? Have we reached a position where we're standing in salah in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we can see and we can feel that we are standing in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We can ask ourselves. But our salah is, example you to give is around the world in 4 rakats. Around the world in 4 rakats. This is how our salah is. We're performing salah, but we're thinking, what's happening back home in Italy? In our salah, we were wondering what's happening at work. We're in salah, we're wondering how many other taxi drivers has jumped the queue. We're in salah, but we're thinking what's happening at the business. We're in salah, but we're thinking what's happening here. We're in salah, but we have all sorts of things in our mind. This is the condition of our salah. Where is ihsan? Where is that ihsan? And again here, we are standing where? We are standing in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just imagine, a person stands in front of a judge. I won't give the example of a king, because we're not accustomed to those conditions where we actually summon and to stand in front of the king. But just imagine, a person has a very important court case to attend, and he knows that everything is now hangs in the decision of the judge. And now he's standing in front of the judge. And while standing in front of the judge, he's there facing the judge, but at the same time, he's looking around at the ceiling tiles. He's looking around at the decor there. He's looking around here, there. He's not attentive towards the judge. This obviously is going to have an effect on the judge. So that's thinking, hang on, this guy, if he's got so little respect for me, even if he's not guilty, I'll pass him guilty. But the reality is, nobody does that. There they don't look, my life hangs in his hand. And when that is the case, he will make sure that he stands there with utmost respect. He'll stand there with utmost respect, looking towards the judge, knowing that look, the judge is in front of me, and when he's in front of me, I need to show respect to him, And I need to show him that I can see that he is in front of me. If he's not there, then my actions will be different. But he's there, the judge is there. So I need to behave and present myself appropriately. When we have so much respect for a mortal, for a perishable human being, then why, when we perform salah, do we not realize that the judge of all judges is in front of us? Then we do not stand as if we are standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we worded here that our lives are in the hands of this judge. Whatever sentence he gives is in his hands now. Whereas here we are standing in front of who? Malikul Muluk. We're standing in front of who? Limanil mulkul yawm, lillahi al-wahid al-qahhar. We're standing in front of who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on the day that it truly matters, the court will be his court. When the day truly matters, the judge will be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then when we're standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we all know the condition of our hearts. We all know where our hearts are. We all know where our minds are. Our hearts are somewhere else, our minds are somewhere else. And then when we go into sajda, we're doing sajda, but at the same time whilst performing sajda, we are prostrating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but our hearts are somewhere else. Our hearts are prostrating to somebody else. If we have love for somebody else, at that time we're doing sajda, but we're thinking of that person in our sajda. We are showing that we're doing sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but then when we have some needs, we're doing the same to other people as well. But here we're putting our forehead in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas this sajda that we do, this is that position which is the closest any human being can reach to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is when he is in sajda. That's why a true ashiq of Allah, person who has reached a position of ihsan, the enjoyment he gets in his sajda, nobody else can experience the position, the enjoyment in sajda. And it is for that reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every rakat has given us 2 sajdas. So that you can repeat that enjoyment of the sajda. The enjoyment you get, you can repeat the enjoyment of the sajda twice. Another hikmah for that, as we on it, is, when Nabi Karim mentions, is to belittle shaitan. When shaitan was told to prostrate to Adam, he couldn't even do just that one sajda to Adam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to ridicule shaitan, makes his servants do 2 sajdas to show him that look, these servants are such. They've been told to prostrate twice, and they prostrate not just once, but they prostrate twice. But here, not to any Adam, but here to the creator of Adam. This is the sajda. Do any of us get that enjoyment, surur, and pleasure and enjoyment of the sajda? We don't. And why we don't get that is because we do not have the condition and the quality of ihsan in our hearts. That we are facing and we are seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the highest of ihsan. And the lower degree of ihsan is that if it isn't a case of أَن تَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ, then it is case of فَإِن لَمْ يَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ فَإِن لَمْ تَرَاكَ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. That if you cannot see him, فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ, then he is seeing you. We do not even possess the lower position of ihsan. Never mind a high degree of ihsan, but we don't even possess the lower degree of ihsan. And look, we cannot perceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but let us at least have that perception that look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing. And it is for that reason Nabi Karim mentioned in the hadith that when a person performs such a salah which is devoid of ihsan, then although he has discharged his duty, but then the same salah goes up to the heavens. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dislikes it, and the same salah is then thrown back onto the face of a person. This way, if we go to somebody and we take a gift, but the gift is of no value, or it is actually belittling the person that we've given the gift to, what will they do? In order to show that this satisfaction to it, they will throw it back on us. And that is a sign of return, to throw it back on an individual. How can you present this to me? In the same way, when we perform our salah in such a way, where our hearts and minds are all over the place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dislikes that salah is not accepted by Allah, it is thrown back onto our faces. And take this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in need of such salah. This, dear friends, is the purpose of tazkiyah. This is the purpose of tasawwuf, that our hearts reach that position of ihsan. And our hearts can only reach that position of ihsan when, as I mentioned to you, our hearts are purified. Hearts are purified. And now coming back to the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, of how Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam had made their tazkiyah and what caliber they became and what position they reached. Unfortunately today, we base our deen merely on our ibadat. There's the fact that I am punctual on my ibadat, maybe my ma'mulat, my wazaif, my tilawat of the Quran, my zikr, the nawafil, the awabin, the tahajjud and that. We are content on these things thinking that it is this that will take me into Jannah, it is this which will qualify me and acquire me the position of ihsan. But the reality is that isn't the case. That isn't the case. That we just rely on those ibadah, but when it comes to our internal self, there's nothing our internal self avoid. We have all the dirt and filth that is there in the heart. An example of this tazkiyah of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, that on one occasion, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sat with the Sahaba. He had his majlis and the Sahaba was sat there. Another companion came into the masjid. He came for his own needs. He came and he went and he made his wuzu, he did what he wanted to, and he walked past and he left the place, the masjid. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to the Sahaba, that do you want to see a Jannati? Would you like to see a Jannati? Obviously, who wouldn't? Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't say, look, this companion of mine who is so close to me, this companion here, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, there's a Jannati. So looked down and saw this person, that he just came, did his wuzu and left from the masjid. He didn't even come and sit in the gathering of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says he's a Jannati. The next day, again the majlis is on. Nabi Kareem says, would you like to see a Jannati? And he again points and he points towards the same person. The third day Nabi Kareem says to Sahaba, do you want to see a Jannati? And again they think it may be somebody different now. And again Nabi Kareem points to the same person that he is a Jannati. Now the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, obviously they had a lot of hirs, greed, and good greed in them. That they wanted to know what is it that's given him the title of being a Jannati. So from the gathering there was a Sahabi, Sayyidina Amr bin As radiallahu ta'ala an. And Sayyidina Amr bin As radiallahu ta'ala an, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gave him the title of being Thalabu hadil ummah. That he is like sly, cunning, like a fox. So Sayyidina Amr bin As radiallahu ta'ala an started wondering, who is this person? What is it that he is doing? That says, Nabi Kareem sallallahu said he is a Jannati, and we are sitting here all the time in the company of Nabi Kareem sallallahu, and he doesn't say that we are Jannati. So what he does, he goes to his house. Now the Arabs in those days and now as well, they're very well known for their hospitality. Any stranger came to the house, they became a guest. Our own come to our house and we don't treat them as guests. Our own come and we don't want to keep them as guests. Their strangers came and they kept them as guests. So he came there and said, look, I would like to stay at your house. So he invited him in. He didn't say who he was. He invited him in. And he stayed there. He stayed there with the intention that I'll see what deeds, what actions he does. So he finds that throughout the day, this Sahabi does nothing unique. He goes and he toils in the fields and work as usual. He comes home and all he does is he performs his knowl salah. Nothing different at all. So he thought, never mind. I'll probably see him night. He probably spends the entire night in ibadat. So he said, at night time I kept awake, stayed awake, and I found that the entire night he slept. He slept throughout the night. And just moments before Fajr he got up, performed his tahajjud and went for his Fajr salah. And after Fajr salah he hit the sack again. And then morning time he went back to work. So for a moment I felt maybe he's hiding what he's doing. So I'll see for another night. Another night. And again he sees that this Sahabi is sleeping the entire night. He just gets up just few moments so he can perform 2 rakats, tahajjud, his Fajr salah, and then he's going back to sleep again. And then during the morning, his day, he's going to work. He said, I spent 3 days by him. And in those 3 days, I saw nothing unique at all in his actions. Nothing different at all. But to that extent, I felt for a moment that no, Nabi Kareem may have made a mistake here. Because when it comes to Quran, I know more of the Quran than him. I memorize more of the Quran than him. When it comes to hadith, I know more hadith than him because I'm punctual regularly in the majlis of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he isn't. Because you find Sahabi, they're all Sahabi, but there were different types of Sahaba. There were those who were closer to Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who would regularly come in the gathering of Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and there were those who were, but they kept a bit of a distance. So he mentioned that when it comes to Quran, I have more Quran than him. Hadith, I have more Hadith than him. And when it comes to Amal, as in deeds and that, Nawafil and that, I find that I am doing more than what he is doing. He's just doing a bare minimum. Of all his salah with Jamaat and his tahajjud salah. The Sahaba punctual on tahajjud. So he's doing a bare minimum. This doesn't make sense. And now when he couldn't keep it, he said to this person, look, the reason I've come to you is, first of all, my introduction is that my name is Amr bin As. To which this person mentioned that, yes, I know who you are. Amr bin As was a wealthy companion as well. I have heard of you and I'm aware of who you are. He says to him that I came and stayed with you for the sole purpose that on 3 occasions Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that you are a Jannati. Now I wanted to know and see what is it that you are doing that made Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam say that you are a Jannati. However, these 3 days I have passed with you, I haven't found anything unique in you. What is it? To which he mentioned that, look, with regards to my knowledge, and with regards to my deeds and actions, my amal and ibadat, you've seen it. You've seen it. But if there is anything that Nabi Karim has given me like tidings of Jannat is, the only thing that comes to my mind is that my heart is white as milk. لَيْسَ فِي قَلْبِ غِشٌّ لِأَحَدٍ وَلَا أَحْسُدُ أَحَدًا. So she mentions, I never have any malice in my heart for anybody, and neither do I have any jealousy for somebody. My heart is pure as white. Pure as milk. White as milk. To which she mentions that if there is anything, then the only thing I can think of is this, that my heart is so clean and I have no enmity towards anybody whatsoever. And how Amr bin As radiallahu ta'ala, after 3 days absence, comes back. When he comes back, obviously a regular is absent. You can tell that the regular is absent. When he came back, Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, O Amr bin As, there was no need to spend 3 days. If you came back with the same heart, I'll give you also the glad tidings of Jannah. There was no need for you to go absent for 3 days. Just bring the same heart and I'll give you the glad tidings of Jannah as well. This is what tazkiyah is. For our hearts to be cleansed and so clean. Where today we find, we are so punctual in our ibadat and we think that that is everything. That I'm punctual on all my nawafil. I'm punctual on every year I'm going for, my Ramadan is in the Haramain. And I'm doing this ibadat and that ibadat. But the condition of our hearts, we all know the conditions of the heart. Here this Sahabi, he's doing what is necessary for him to do. And that's all. But more than that is, along with that, he's got his heart that is clean. And on that Nabi Karim has mentioned that he's a Jannati. And Nabi Karim gives him the title of Jannati, he's definitely a Jannati. So this, dear friends, is the purpose of tazkiyah, and this is the purpose of tasawwuf. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all understanding. Inshallah we shall continue tomorrow. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.